It's like you're the king of the hill.
I mean, Cebu has a beautiful horizon and it's a beautiful city. You know, it has everything. To see Cebu transform to the city it is, today, it's a very proud feeling, to see what a difference the whole city has become and what it will be perhaps in the very near future. The self-made genius who is my father,
Yes.
he had 10 cents in his pocket.
Right.
I would be nobody if it wasn't for my parents. Clearly, so after I graduated and I came to the business, I joined the business, expected to be the boss and all of these things, but that was totally not what happened. But then, so my father, he put me literally rock bottom of the company. But you think that you can run this company? You think you're gonna be the boss? There's no way in hell that you're gonna be it. So in my 30s or so, that's when I started to learn, and I really, really made that effort. Not just obviously to learn the business, but to really gain the respect of my father, So prior to coming in, I had a 3-year plan. My first year was observation, and my second year plan was implementation, and then my third year plan was execution.
Datu Daya was a legendary chieftain who protected this area from pirates and marauders about 7 centuries ago. It is him that the Kandaya Resort is named after. The brainchild of Martin Yeung, President and CEO of MSY Holdings Corporation. Join me as we meet this modern-day chieftain dito lamang sa Usapang Bilyonaryo. Martin, you have quite the commanding view here.
Oh, thank you.
It's like you're the king of the hill.
Yeah, the view is beautiful. I mean, Cebu has a beautiful horizon and it's a beautiful city. It has everything.
When you look out the window, can you pinpoint? Can you see some of the developments you've made, or are they further out? You can.
Well, you can obviously, like being situated, essentially in the center of Ayala. I mean, you will see buildings left and right. I'll show you a little bit later. On the mountain view on the other side, you will see many buildings, being developed. When you look up a different direction, you see the sea, you see Mactan. So I do get a relatively beautiful view of the entire Cebu to see how things are, changing. That's right.
Yeah. A billboard.
Yeah.
From the top of the building.
Yeah, you can see how Cebu is being transformed before your eyes.
I think Cebu is one of those places that every year something's different, So being officially in Cebu now for about 7 years, obviously I've been coming and flying back to Cebu on a yearly basis ever since I was young. But to see Cebu transform to the city it is, today, it's a very proud feeling, to see what a difference the whole city has become and what it will be perhaps in the very near future.
And you have a big role in it, being in property development.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say a big role, but I mean every company strives to obviously do their best, especially when it comes to development, providing things that the general masses can use, like housing, condos. Living space, of course, will always be the most important. Location, of course, is the key. They always say, location.
Right.
And it's really true. But then, however, as the years go by, property, lands, they increase in price. And a difference between, say, 10 years ago and now, you couldn't even purchase a fraction of what the price was just 10 years ago. So it's quite hard now for developers in terms of finding the right location, the right property, as it's very expensive. So then everything kind of follows, along with it in terms of your development costs, your labor costs, the material costs.
So what are your priorities as CEO of MSY Holdings?
I guess my main priority would always have to perhaps start off with sustainability, ensuring that the family business will continue to last for generations to come. So it's not necessarily about being aggressive and having the most properties and the most developments, but doing it correctly. So of course now my father has retired and he is my mentor, of course. I've learned everything from him. And I have a little bit of time to reassess the whole playing field. I think the pandemic was actually a very good time for most people, if not all, to have that moment to reassess in terms of what direction you want to go.
Yeah.
What is your next 5-year plan and all of these things. But to answer your question again, it's sustainability. I mean, our family is big. And I want to make sure that every business venture that we have, that are existing, that are ongoing, and also potentially in the future, to ensure that it's self-sustainable for, my children and
Their
onwards.
children,
Yes, the generations to come.
Right. It must be a heavy burden on your shoulders, being the only son and your father being self-made.
I think the most important thing is to look at everything from one step back. So even during my journey, becoming the person I am today, of course, I would be nobody if it wasn't for my parents, clearly. My father, of course, being that business strict mentor, and my mother, of course, being that loving family, that pillar of strength in my life and in all of our lives. So the burden is there. However, I still have my parents. Fortunately, I'm one of those who still have them both whenever I need. So even until this day, if I have any questions or concerns, or if I have even business opportunities and plans, it would never make sense for me to just go ahead and just say,
Without asking them.
without consulting, the self-made genius who is my father.
Yeah.
He had 10 cents in his pocket.
Right. I was just about to ask you.
Yeah.
Tell us the story of how he made his empire with just 10 cents, really? in his
Yeah,
pocket?
so they were not a wealthy family, and then my father, he is a very smart man, of course, very humble beginnings. Yeah, he never actually finished school, and he was already straight from the get-go trying to find ways to
Create
improve,
wealth.
to
Yeah.
create wealth,
Yeah, yeah.
And Hong Kong, as a typical Chinese Hong Kong man, it's really all about business in a sense, So his priority is focusing on business, and ever since then, I mean, it was just a very simple mindset, and that is to, no matter what, find a way to make money.
Were diamonds his first business?
No, it was actually pearls. Well, actually, even prior to pearls, he used to work for his best friend, actually. And just as like a paper boy, delivering papers around and all of these things. There's no opportunity. He didn't finish school. Unfortunately, his best friend, who actually was relatively wealthy at the time, gave him an opportunity, at least just to work for the basic things in the company. And they were doing pearls at the time. And
I guess he was very observant. He must have been.
I think, observant is...
Astute.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's a good way to put it. But more so motivated. Motivated in the sense that he knew he had the capabilities to do it. So, with nothing, no background, not finishing school, he knew that it's a different world. You're out there on your own. You don't have the backing of your father, or the money that's there. You're
Capital.
nothing. You're on your own from the get-go.
So was it in sales? Where did he begin?
Well, even imagine. So he started off just delivering papers and doing the
Yes,
basics, and
right.
slowly he got the opportunity to become in sales. And when he got into sales, he would literally, go all out. Go to every single customer, even if the customer blows him off. The next day he's just going to be there, and the day after, and all.
was
He'll make
really
sure,
very
and he is
determined.
very determined.
Did he become wealthier than his best friend?
Well, they became
They
partners.
became
Oh, wow, he was taken as a partner.
He bought his way in.
Wow.
So it's actually quite impressive, I'll tell you, even until today. So what happened was, again, making his way, getting the clients, and again, the truth is the clients that he tried to get into, they felt bad for him. This guy is still out there, at this time. And let's just bring him in and see what he has to offer. And he's a very charismatic and he's a very nice person, a great person to talk to. So they gave him a chance, and it started small, and essentially like the domino effect, just slowly things started going his way.
I suppose he saved every cent that he made.
Oh, sure, yeah, definitely. Saving his money and being careful with it, and the way I see it, he's kind of like a computer, in a sense. His calculations is flawless. I mean, he can calculate things and remember things like with. I was speaking to Jude earlier, who has photographic memory, in a sense. Very, very impressive, without even finishing high school.
So he bought his way into the company?
Yes.
Like, how exactly?
After pearls, then there was an opportunity to go from pearls into diamonds.
This was selling raw diamonds?
Oh, yes, everywhere. So he would travel in every destination that obviously were site holders, and then select the stones personally. So you're talking about, especially, can you imagine back, how many years ago, 40 years ago or so, if not more. It's a different world back then.
Yeah.
You're traveling in economy class, and you're waiting for hours, in every single airport. And once you get there with no sleep, you're going to have to go through bags, literally parcels of diamonds that range from small to big.
And then, of course, you have to be schooled in how to choose.
Yeah, so of course
So how did he learn that?
Self-taught, yeah.
Is it the 5 C's? I forget now.
Yeah, well, not only that. It's not just about knowing the 5 C's, but more so understanding how to look at a stone. So you have to look at the stone and select it, and not just base it on what people say, because back then GIA and all the certs were not really around. So they had to open a company also in India. We partnered actually with an Indian company that had obviously all of the technical abilities to do that.
So this was the days when it wasn't regulated. There weren't all these classifications.
No, there was, all the classifications were there.
Okay.
However, nowadays it's now with everything being online and people are already able to learn things themselves, it's a little bit different. However, to understand the diamond, it would be thousands of carats, but in the smaller stones, and mass supplies to jewelers, to manufacturers, and all over the world. It's US and everywhere, Hong Kong. And there was a golden era in terms of probably around like the 80s, early 80s towards the 90s. And that's when diamonds really just shot up the roof. And it was a really huge business, great business. And yeah, he made a lot of money.
His timing was also very good.
Yeah, I mean, I think, to be honest, to be successful, it's not just obviously the determination and the knowledge and the motivation and whatnot. There's always going to have a huge part, and that is luck. Sometimes to be at the right place at the right time, to meet that right person at that moment that was able to give you that opportunity that most might not be able to have.
But I think it's part of that opportunity won't fall on your lap unless you really work hard, because you're out there.
Absolutely.
The opportunity will surely cross your path.
For sure. I mean, for me, it's like I said, it's definitely a combination. You must obviously have that determination, and you must have that drive to really ensure that you want to make it, you want to succeed in whatever it is that you do. However, again, sometimes you might have that little bit of luck, that just happens,
Right.
and again, you met that right person, or you have this business opportunity that just came out of nowhere, and then the rest is history.
It's a wonderful, wonderful life. No need to laugh and cry. It's a wonderful, wonderful life.
Joined the diamond business in 2002. I was, I guess a little bit arrogant, to be honest. Expected to be the boss and all of these things, but that was totally not what happened.
get your motivation? Because, you know, of course, your father was already wealthy when you were born.
I obviously grew up with
Privilege.
privilege, you know, with a silver spoon in my mouth, to be honest. And it definitely took a while for me to really understand all of the lessons that my father was trying to teach, you know, at that time, and my mother as well. So I studied in England for a couple of years, and then I was in the U.S. for a couple of years. Graduated in 2002, and you know, I to be honest, I came back thinking I knew everything. You know, I went for a business BA class and everything, you know. But then it takes time to really formally and truly understand the lesson that is how to be humble, I guess, to know that, you know, you are actually a nobody, you know, if it wasn't for, you know, your family background or something like this. And, you know, there was a time where I had a relatively bad relationship with my father, and I thought I knew everything. So when I joined the diamond business in 2002, you know, I was, you know, I guess a little bit arrogant, to be honest. Back then I expected everything, you know, just that, okay, you know, we have this and this. Taking things for granted, I think, is the best way to put it. Expected to be the boss and all of these things. But that was totally not what happened, and everything was totally different. So we'd have our arguments, you know, we wouldn't see eye to eye. And again, thinking, you know, after I graduated from college and he didn't graduate, you know, you're thinking that you learn things that he didn't, when in fact, you really don't know anything.
He was just, I guess, waiting for you to what? Stumble? Or
No.
to have an epiphany?
At 22, you know, you're really a kid at that time, you know. So what he simply did was he put me at the bottom of the company, literally as a paper boy.
He didn't give you an allowance?
What you will always have small allowances, but then you obviously, you know, at 22, you always want a little bit more, right?
You were spending more than you were making.
100%, 100%, you know. He told me, and I still remember this until today, he told me that, I'm your father. I will always take care of you, all right? But you think that you can run this company? You think you can be the boss? There's no way in hell that you're gonna be it. I'm gonna hire someone else instead of you to run this entire company, because you know what? You don't have the value. You're not worth to handle this business.
So when did the realization come?
When you really realize that if you don't really work for it, you don't try, you don't really make an effort to prove yourself in I guess in that aspect, especially to my father, you're really a nobody.
Because you thought you could just inherit it
Yes,
as the son.
absolutely. You know,
That
I
position was waiting for you.
naive, just being naive. I was a total naive kid back then at 22 years old. You know, I like to go out, I like to you know, have fun and stuff like that. To be honest, it's just time, maturity. I had opportunities back then, of course, you know, to start small things or, you know, here or there. But prior to any of that, you need capital, right?
Yes.
And my father's like, what's the point of giving you money if you're just gonna just spend it? What happened was, starting from the bottom, literally, you know, the embarrassment of literally being a paper boy in a company and slowly then becoming an assorter. So those are relatively the lowest departments. So I had to go through the stone by stone and assort it and all of these things. I'm not talking about a small span of time. You know, this is at least 10 years in the making, you know, to slowly build my way up. Again, over years, you build your way, you build confidence for him, and I guess respect, that he started to view me with a little bit more respect. And then so you build your way up to the top. Then I made my way to manager of the company, and then slowly kept going up and up to director of the diamond company.
When did he finally see confidence in you that you could be CEO?
A lot of people may think that every family, the children must be the ones to take over.
Right.
They will be the ones to be handed over the reins of the business. But my father it's not his way. He would never, in any given moment, hand it over to any child who is not capable of handling it. It's too big of a responsibility and too big of a risk.
Right.
It makes more sense for him to hire, professional CEO to handle everything. So even working hard and learning the business, learning the ropes, my dad still would never ever hand me the reins unless I'm really capable of doing it. When he fully retired, that's when he essentially fully handed over. So it was, again, a experience and a journey, but ultimately I think the main way of accepting, I guess, the failures of the past that I learned from him and of course my mom was humility, is to be humble. Don't think that you know everything. Don't think that you're this, don't think you're that. Literally drop your pride, lose it, grab your pride, dump it in the trash, and that is the only time you can actually learn. And then when I learned of that, so in my 30s or so, that's when I started to learn, and I really made that effort, not just obviously to learn the business, but to really gain the respect of my father.
So how does he show his approval?
He will never tell you, oh yeah, you're doing good. Of course, now he does. Now he's retired, and which is, probably the best thing any son would want to hear, from your father. But more responsibilities over the years. Over the years, this, you handle this, can you handle that? Can you handle this? Until everything is already on my plate. Yeah, Kandaya, of course, was my first real pet project. Which took time to really develop and to become successful. So again, Kandaya, it did take some time, but it's doing very well now. I wouldn't say, of course, it's like the Shangri-La status, where they're 90%, throughout, but we're getting there slowly, especially over the years. We're building up, now 60, close to 70% all year round.
The guests opt to do this treat?
Well, actually, we have a trip almost every day.
Oh.
And it's usually a private trip. Because many guests stay at Kandaya, they want a private boat trip, so they hire the boat just for themselves. Malapascua actually has crystal clear blue water and very white sand. And then people like to do swimming here.
Salamat! Halina't tikman natin ang buhay bilyonaryo. Private beach, freshly grilled seafood, chilled wine. Ano pa ba ang hahanapin ninyo? Are you planning more forays in hospitality?
Sure. Everything in every business that we're doing, even also the construction. We're launching now our 128 residence. It's a joint venture with the Luliers and Santa Lucia. It's a condotel, and then there will be a third building, which is a hotel, full hotel. It's now up to me now, So it's one of those things where I was given the opportunity to at least prove myself.
Yeah. So how many employees do you have? Do you oversee?
Hundreds. If not 1,000 for sure around. So it's a lot of management.
What is your business style?
Delegation is very important, but it is how you delegate probably is the key. So nobody can handle a business on your own. However, you have to know everything of the business before you can ever delegate. So one of the things is obviously finding a team that works well with you and giving them the tasks. So prior to me moving here to Cebu, actually I never intended to come. Obviously things were good.
Really?
But yeah, things change obviously in life, as my dad got a little bit older, and he asked me to come to Cebu.
Any doubts about, were you kind of forced?
I was never forced into anything.
Okay.
My father and my mom, they never forced me. That's like I said. They said, yeah, you can be in the company, but remain there forever. But it was really more of my drive since I after again my lowest point, which was being essentially trash of the company, to really working my way, and I had that drive to prove myself, to my mom, to prove myself especially for my father.
And to yourself, I suppose.
Sure,
To yourself.
absolutely, and then this is the motivation that really drove me to be the person I am today.
Yeah.
You know.
So coming to Cebu, how did you make that decision when your father said you had to be here?
I told my parents, there's going to be changes if and when I come. Big changes, how it was run, because I saw how the company was run and the staffing and all of these things. So prior to coming in, I already set up a plan. I had a 3-year plan. My first year was observation, and my second year plan was implementation, and then my third year plan was execution, and changing the entire system on the second year, at least the process. And then the third year was the execution phase, in which it is you're either on board or you're not. Okay? So at that point, I did literally get rid of perhaps half of the company on the third year. I didn't mean it also in a bad way, because when you check the finances and all of these things, you can see where things, you can be doing better. So it's looking at the books, looking at the staffing, looking at the efficiency, the productivity, and all of these things, assessing everything, and then making that change on that third year, which was, I believe, 2016. Everything is under my watch now. All of the different business departments and ventures are all under my watch now. So after that time, everything changed. So rebuilding again the entire structure of the company. But again, when I say delegation, absolutely, but delegate to the right people only, which means to get the right people to handle the right job. However, you still must be on top, fully, in full control. No matter even you delegate those, they still have to set the reports, all of the things. It has to be, to make sure that whatever it is that you're doing, you're getting it done the way you want it to be done. So that way, if there is a failure, I'm not going to waste my time blaming the staff. It's my fault, because I set up that team. I put the person.
You also have accountability.
You must have it, because the accountability is not just whether you succeed or you fail. It's trying to do the best that you can to make it work. So success or failure is basically you implementing your choices to make the right choices and going the right direction of how it's supposed to be. But it is you who made the choice and the direction, not your staff.
You talk like an old man. But you're a guy who looks like you also know how to have a good time.
My concept of having a good time in the past was very different to how it is now.
Okay.
So
what is
little things, spending time with my family makes me happy. My son, I love the outdoor sports like riding. I love the sea. The sea is one of the most therapeutic things for me. This is an interesting piece.
Yeah, my gosh.
Well, I had this in Hong Kong.
Okay.
So this was actually my place in Hong Kong. So when I moved here, I brought this over. It's actually from an auction. So there's auction actually they sell dinosaur fossils. The painting on the right is essentially a city of the future.
Yes.
And the one on the left is more of a fantasy type world of a view. So I have a group that we ride with together, which is basically, with the bikes and stuff like that. So this is where we kind of hang on the weekends. I see myself a lot in my son. And I know for a fact I'm going to go through what my father went through. Maybe that's the punishment I'm going to get. I know for a fact that we are going to be butting heads strongly.
to Daya.
No, I mean,
He was
it's
the
the little things.
inspiration, no,
Yes,
for
he
the
was
name of
inspiration of Kandaya. You know, and I think for Daanbantayan, especially for the north, the 4th district, it's the time now for business, you know, commerce to really start to push up more further north. South is really quite developed.
Right. And you have a big land bank there.
Oh, we have tons of land. Yeah, we have lots of land there. I mean, it's there for future development, more of a business type district. Things are still, you know, in the process of making it happen. But most importantly is to open a airport for the north. So that is in talks now as we speak. Hopefully things pass through the correct channels. Obviously with things in Manila, the government processes and stuff like that. And once that is done, fingers crossed, and the airport does open in the north,
That will really
it will open everything up. Yeah.
hasten the development.
Oh, absolutely. Just like Malapascua, as you can see, so you just were there recently. It's still essentially Boracay, maybe 10, 20 years ago. Cebu is ever changing.
So you welcome all these, I mean, you know, there's so many developers, even some from Luzon coming here.
Well, competition is always going
Keeps
to
you
be
on your
there.
toes, of course.
You have to, yeah. So it gives you the opportunity to reassess. So even for our developments, which we have a lot of future developments, you know, in terms of even further condos in Mactan, which we'll be doing, housing projects, which we always do, which is the bread and butter of the company. But it gives you time to reassess on what is the plan, what actually works. I welcome all of these developments and everything in every aspect of business, because we do everything. You know, we have restaurants and we do all of these things, resorts and condos and houses. Big and Pump also was a process to build, despite even having a celebrity chef as our partner, Jason Atherton, who has restaurants all over the world. What's interesting is Cebu was not really a restaurant culture in a sense where that people are willing to go out and spend for a high-end meal. But now it's changed. Pig and Pum is full practically every day.
I can sense your excitement. It's exciting you.
It's really exciting because I see a lot of opportunity. When Cebu starts to grow and everything starts to grow with it, there's opportunity everywhere. And when pandemic hit, everything was literally on a standstill, but the whole world. And it's so good to see that, you know, Cebu is having that rebound effect, you know, probably, you know, on steroids. You know, it's really booming.
Are you viewed here as Cebuano or as a Hong Kong?
I'm literally 50-50. I'm half, you know, honky, I call myself that, and then half Cebuano. Because I understand and I am actually part of both cultures.
So MSY is not Martin,
It's my mom. It's my mom.
It's
My mom, who has been, you know, the super philanthropist here in Cebu. It's her passion to help, and until today. In fact, we're also part of Operation Smile, if you've heard of them, whom are actually going to be opening their headquarters here in Cebu. So they're going to have a official Operation Smile headquarters, which will be at CCMC. Which is a hospital, and it's essentially the entire floor. And it's going to be, of course, nonprofit, operating on children from the entire Philippines with cleft palate, with all of the high-tech equipments from the US. By the way, cheers. I'm so happy to have you here at my house.
One last question.
Sure.
You know, you struggled with the responsibility that you had when you were
20s, yeah.
How do you, motivate your son? I'm sure he has, again, all the comfort in life.
That's actually a very good question. I see myself a lot in my son. I mean, he's almost exactly kind of like me in the personality. Naughty, especially when he's young, but very smart in a sense. You know, I know that he's got it. And I know for a fact I'm going to go through what my father went through. Maybe that's the punishment I'm going to get. I know for a fact that we are going to be butting heads strongly. However, I do hope that, of course, you know, being my son, he has my blood, you know, and of course with the past lessons that I've learned, I'm able to guide him, you know, that we don't have to go through that way. I hope, fingers crossed.
This is Villa Mariquita, eksena ng mga makasaysayang parties dito sa Cebu. But for Martin and his sisters, this was simply home. A place to return to from their studies abroad. Martin is a combination of the business savvy of his father Carlos and the graciousness of his mother Mariquita. Under his stewardship, the legacy of his parents is in good hands. Ako po si Ces Orenia Drilon. Maraming salamat sa inyong panonood sa Usapang Bilyonaryo. Hanggang sa susunod nating pagkikita.